When you woke up this morning, how many of you guys looked in the mirror? I can assume that's pretty much everybody. Now, how many of you looked in the mirror and said, Justin Trudeau's got nothing on me? So I moved to Ottawa to go to university at the University of Ottawa. And after a couple years, I realized that I needed to do something that was entirely my own. I refused to settle for the normal career path, and I wanted to take on a challenge that I wasn't sure I could accomplish. So I was working at Pita Pit part-time, just here in the market, and the option came up to buy the store at the end of the summer. So I was 20, I had no money, and no experience. What could go wrong? So it turns out a lot, actually. Pretty soon I realized that the store wasn't doing very well. Our sales in the winter were terrible. And so I realized if I didn't do something quick, something drastic, I was going to be 21 and bankrupt. And even worse than that, my dad, who had co-signed the loan, would lose his house. So I did what anyone would do. I put in everything I had, and I worked from 10 a.m. until 4 a.m. Actually, let me rephrase, that's probably not what anyone would do, but that's what I did. So I worked from open to close, 18 hours a day. I worked for 729 days straight. That's 2 full years, and I even worked Christmas because we couldn't afford to miss out on even one customer. These were hard times. I often had to make the choice between paying my staff or me. So I always paid my staff, which meant that for me, I maxed out all my credit cards. I was nearly evicted from my apartment. I was in a terrible, terrible position. And I might add, I was still in university part-time. I went from being a young, fit guy to being over 250 pounds. All I saw in the mirror was failure and disgrace. I was pre-diabetic, and in my early 20s, I had high blood pressure. So the doctors almost prescribed me the same medication that my grandparents take. Just think about that for a second. My life was a sinking ship. My health was failing, my business was failing, my relationship was failing, I was failing. And during these times, I just wanted it all to stop. And I just couldn't keep going. What's the point? How could I sustain this for the rest of my life? I just wanted it all to stop. I was trapped because there was no light at the end of the tunnel because there was no tunnel. I dug myself a grave. But the hard work did eventually pay off. So at my first store in the market, we had tripled our sales, and then we moved on and opened up 2 more stores, and now we're working on 2 more. So on the outside, things looked like they were going pretty great, right? So people looked at me and they said, yeah, that guy's got it all together. But when I looked at myself in the mirror, I was still disappointed, I guess is the best way to put it. I was awarded the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award in Canada, and as I was up there accepting the award, all I could think of was how I didn't deserve it. I felt like an imposter. I was afraid someone was going to see through it all for the failure that I really was, because in my eyes, how could someone that looked like me ever be worth something? I was just waiting for Steve Harvey to come up and say, oh, sorry, we accidentally announced the wrong man. Just because exactly that. I thought there was no way that I would be worth something. So on the outside, to everyone else, I was successful, but to me, I was worthless. It was just over a year ago, driving back from our Pita Pit conference, and I said, my life needs to change. I need to get better. For my wife, for my team, and someday, for my kids. Because what good am I if I'm 45 lying in a hospital bed taking my last breath? That day was the last day that I would ever be overweight and do nothing about it. So I woke up the next day and I started running. A few minutes is all I could manage at first. I could feel the blood in my lungs and my legs were weak with every step. But the next day I got up and I pushed myself further. I look back and realize that that day was the day that I refused to settle. Because I will not settle for an average life. I will not settle for leaving my career where it is. I will not settle for leaving my family and my community where they are. I will not settle for being tired, unhealthy, and unhappy, and I will not settle for anything less than extraordinary. So here's how I did it. I changed one thing. So to get healthy again, I started by running a little bit at a time. And then when that became my routine, I started working out with my friends once a week. And then when that became my routine, I got a personal trainer and started eating real clean food instead of the processed stuff that is quick and easy. When you put all these changes together over a long period of time, you won't even recognize your old life the same way that I don't recognize mine. I stand here today confident, fulfilled, and happy. And it feels really good to say that, by the way. I've lost over 80 pounds. I've lost over 80 pounds, and I still have a long way to go. But I tell you, when you add up all those small changes, that's how you do it. One step at a time. There's no secret formula. There's no magic pill. There's nothing you can take that's magically gonna make you skinny again. But I can tell you, when you make small, consistent changes for those areas of your life that you know could be better, there's absolutely no telling what you can do. So my name is Andrew, and I refuse to settle.